It's one of those apocryphal stories, the kind you hear from a preacher without any real identifying detail. But it's stuck with me. This little kid, maybe 4 or 5 years old, he was getting so excited for Christmas to come. You see, he'd been learning all about how at Christmas we celebrate Jesus' birthday. He was especially thrilled to pull out the family nativity set. He remembered the little sheep and those elaborate jeweled wise men from last year, and he couldn't wait to play again. But when he took the little Christ child out of his box, he was puzzled, maybe even a little bit dismayed. "Mom," he said, "I thought you said this is Jesus' birthday." "It is," Mom said. But he was a baby last year. And so here we are at the 11th day. Merry Christmas. And I think our little friend would like Luke's story this morning. You see, by now, by day 11, the manger, the cattle lowing, they feel like 1,000,000 years ago. The world has moved on. The greenery has started to wilt a little bit. The New Year's confetti is all vacuumed up. And at the store, even those last forlorn close-out candy canes have been replaced by Valentine's candy. But the church stubbornly insists, we insist, that it is still Christmas. We are still celebrating the incarnation, the Word made flesh, Emmanuel, God with us. So what do we do with that? What do we make of Christmas when the angel song has faded away, when the shepherds have gone back to the fields? It's still Christmas, and yet for today at least, that little baby wrapped in bands of cloth, he's nowhere to be found. Instead, we get this kid, this boy Jesus, 12 years old, Luke tells us. The world moves on, and the Word still dwells in it. He's closer to being a grown man than to fitting in the manger. And it's the only story we have in all 4 Gospels in the canon. This is the only story we have about Jesus between his infancy and the beginning of his ministry. But it's a good one. The whole family goes up to Jerusalem for the Passover holiday, and on the way back, they're already a full day down the interstate towards home before anyone realizes Jesus isn't with them. Mom and Dad turn around. You can imagine the panic they must have felt. And they head back towards Jerusalem. For 3 whole days they search. 3 days, Mary and Joseph must have torn through the city with that lump in their throats. And then finally they find him. Not looking at the latest stuff in the marketplace, not roaming the streets with the kids in the neighborhood. They find him in the temple, of all places, sitting with the rabbis, listening, asking questions, and he's brilliant. Can you imagine? 12 years old, no supervision, free to go literally anywhere in the whole big city, and they find the kid in Sunday school. Mary and Joseph are astonished, too. Really, though, what child is this? They're relieved, of course, but also a little ticked off. "Child, why have you treated us like this? Don't you know we've been searching for you, worried, sick?" And I wish Luke gave us more of a hint about Jesus' tone when he replies. It's the first time we hear him speak in Luke's gospel. "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my Father's house?" Was Jesus genuinely puzzled? Was he matter of fact about the whole thing? Was there just a hint of mouthing off, a whiff of teenage angst? And Mary and Joseph, Luke tells us, Mary and Joseph don't understand. You see, he was a baby last year. Of course, this is a Christmas story. Of course, this is about the incarnation. You see, this isn't some supernatural story that feels distant or some parable that makes us scratch our heads. This is God come to be one of us in family life, in holy family life, a little too familiar, even across time and space. Maybe the stakes seem a little higher, Son of God and all that, but here are all those complicated, messy dynamics that we know so well. The child, proud he can hold his own at the grown-ups table. The adolescent asserting his independence and curiosity. A young adult trying on his vocation, who he is called to be. The tension between parental expectations and our own commitments. And of course, his parents' love and fear and frustration, the rush of relief, their pride and their puzzlement. What happens when their baby begins to grow up? Why didn't they know exactly where to find him, I wonder? Had Mary forgotten the angels, the prophecies, the strange circumstances of his birth? Or was she just hoping to hold it off just a little longer? That call, that claim on her son's life. Was she proud? Did she dread this day? What did she and Joseph really see when they found him? Her boy at the center of all those scholars and wise men, asking the hard questions, but looking so comfortable, so at ease, not in the safe confines of the family home in Nazareth, but in the other father's house. What child is this? Luke tells us again that Mary treasured all these things in her heart. But I wonder, did she also feel the first pangs of the sword that Simeon said would pierce her soul? Sometimes I think we don't want him to quite grow up either. Y'all know that great scene from Talladega Nights. Will Ferrell is Ricky Bobby, the blustery NASCAR driver, leading his family in saying grace at the dinner table. Dear Lord, baby Jesus, with your baby Jesus powers. You know, his wife interrupts him. You don't always have to pray to baby Jesus. He did grow up to be a man. But Ricky won't hear it. Look, I like the Christmas Jesus best. Dear tiny Jesus in your golden fleece diapers with your tiny little fat balled up fists. 8 pound, 6 ounce newborn infant Jesus don't know a word yet. We like the Christmas Jesus best. He's so small, so inviting, so familiar. Secure and safe, right in that manger. He is right where we expect him to be. He don't even know a word yet, and so he makes no demands of us. He's not running off anywhere, not making us look for him in places we don't want to go. He doesn't confound us. He doesn't frustrate us. You see, it's easier to adore him than to follow him. But Luke reminds us that this morning's story, too, is Christmas Jesus. This story is so very human. This is the long game of the incarnation. The child grows in wisdom and in years, and he'll go back to that city, to that very temple on yet another Passover. He'll drive the salesman out of his father's house. He'll upend the powers. He'll be called to the cross. And 3 long days later, they'll find him in an unexpected place, holding the very center. And again, they'll ask, amazed, what child is this? Yes, the child grows in wisdom and in years, and he calls us to grow up with him into his stature. He calls us to grow too as disciples. Have we forgotten? Or do we sometimes just hope to hold it off a little longer, that call? And one day, like Mary, we see like a sudden epiphany. We see exactly who he is. Right at the center of all things, speaking with wisdom and authority. leading us away from our gentle and comfortable places right out into a world full of demands and of needs, into the call that claims us.